Okay, so American federal government, moving right along here. We are on chapter 8, the executive branch and the federal bureaucracy. So the first thing I want to explain, because we have a lot of really young people, a lot of high school students, what is a bureaucracy? It comes from the French word for desk, bureau, and what it's referring to is any office of government that's in charge of carrying out the functions of government. And so any government agency, when you think about the bureaucracy at the state and local level, it's anybody that works at City Hall or anybody in the county that works at the county courthouse, people that help you with your driver's license, and people that help you pay your water bill or whatever else at City Hall. That's at the state and local level. At the federal level, the bureaucracy would be any agency carrying out the federal mission. So if you go to the Social Security office, that's all the bureaucracy of the Social Security office, the Internal Revenue Service, or when you go to meet with your student aid counselor and talk about your FAFSA or FIFSA, the federal student aid. That is the bureaucracy. If you had a natural disaster or something in FEMA, they are part of the bureaucracy. So today the bureaucracy, the federal bureaucracy, is definitely huge, and your book talks about that. And again, most of you being young, you are going to have dealings with that bureaucracy, and it is going to be very helpful, and at times it is going to make you want to bang your head against the wall. That's part of your assignment this week on the discussion post. I've had this assignment for a while, and for many, especially really young people, you may not be able to relate to that, because most of your dealings might be limited to like going and sitting and waiting to try to get your driver's license. But that's state level, that's not federal level. But that still is a good example of bureaucracy, because at times they can be very helpful, and the process can go really smooth. But at times it can be like, oh my gosh, I've been here for 3 hours and this is ridiculous, and so on and so on. So, and you'll find that, like if you're dealing with the IRS and things like that, I've had very positive experiences with the bureaucracy and working with federal office workers and things, but I've had very negative experiences as well. And people in business too will tell you that. So that's basically what the bureaucracy is, and that's what its mission is. And it's part of the executive branch, because if you remember, the legislative branch, they make the laws. And once they pass a law, again, I mentioned last week, Clean Air Act. Okay, Mr. President and the Executive Department, you need to create an agency, the Environmental Protection Agency, and it's their job to make sure that the air is clean and enforce regulations to do that. Congress passes a law, we need to collect taxes. All right, Mr. President, you need to appoint someone to be head of the Treasury, and that person needs to appoint someone to be over the IRS, who then needs to hire IRS agents to make sure that we are collecting taxes, because that might be the most important function of government. Everyone hates taxes, but we must have taxes for government to function. And if the government doesn't do that effectively, then governments fail. So things like that. It talks about the growth of the federal bureaucracy and the organization. And you have the cabinet members under the president, and they each have a secretary, and then you have under cabinets, under secretaries, and so on, and it's a large bureaucracy. A lot of times people lament that, and they're like, oh gosh, the federal government, I'm so tired, there's just so much waste and stuff. And there's rooted in truth for sure. There's definitely some waste. There's always waste in any organization. Certainly there's waste within corporations and things like that. And there always can be improvement in it, but oftentimes it's forgotten when they do a really good job. Most recently, you've seen the importance of the bureaucracy with COVID and the CDC, and I think I've discussed that previously. And so a lot of what the bureaucracy too does is they do make policy, because the laws often are vague collect these taxes. Well, how do you go about doing that? And what if someone doesn't pay? What's the penalty? How long does it take before you collect them, before the person might have their wages garnished? And all those rules, they have to be made for everything that the government carries out. With regards to the Department of Interior and land preservation, and we have national parks. Okay, here's an example of bureaucracy. We're 5.5 minutes through. I deal with the federal bureaucracy. I organize a trail race every January in the Ouachita Forest, and it's become really popular. I'm really happy with it. We have over 200 people that come from all over the country. But in order to host that event, I have to get a permit from the Forest Service. And when I apply for that permit, the permit form is about 20 pages long. It's like ridiculous. Oh my goodness, I get so frustrated. I'm like, and a lot of times I have to call 10 different people to find out what I'm supposed to do. And it can be extremely frustrating. At the same time, I understand the purpose. Because if you just let people go out there and host an event and you don't regulate that, you're going to have 200 people that are leaving trash, that are pooping wherever they want to, that are tearing up the forest, tearing up the trails, and they want to make sure that it's conserved and that it's there and it's used properly for future generations. And that's just for this little trail race. So I've got to tell everything I'm going to do. I've got to make sure that it's safety, have a safety plan in place, all of that. So that's my dealings with the federal bureaucracy. And they also do that like with logging companies, because logging companies can log on national forests, but they're going to be like, and they're going to be really strict on that and be like, okay, how are we going to conserve these resources? Because historically, a long time ago, we didn't do anything to conserve them. So that's a good example that I have on the bureaucracy in a way that it works well, but it also can be very frustrating. It may be hard for you to come up with an example in that assignment. So that's where you got to do a little work on your own. You're going to have to talk to your parents, talk to your grandparents, talk to other teachers. I know you can find someone, because if you've lived life for long enough, you've dealt with the bureaucracy, and there is a story to tell, and you can find someone with a good story to tell where they've really helped, and you can find someone with a story where there needs improvement for sure. It gets you thinking about the bureaucracy and how it works. So, alrighty, so moving along, we're getting almost halfway through with this class here in early October. Got a midterm coming up pretty soon, but email me if you have any questions. As always, I'm very happy to look over your work before you turn it in as well and give suggestions. I'm here for you, and we will see you next week.